this is it. This is our lives now. This is how we will be living, and that only happened maybe a few times because having lived in Germany, which we'll touch on later, I'm not your normal American. It's the first time out of the country, or doesn't speak any foreign languages, or doesn't recognize any food, is terrified of actually eating chicken outside of KFC.
Tony King, mate, welcome to Didim TV podcast. How are you doing?
Oh, great. It's great to be here, James.
Straight away, that's not a British accent. I was thinking about this. So from the USA, from the United States of America, and I was thinking about this. I was going to say it's not an accent you often hear in Altrincham or Didim. And actually, I've never met, in nearly the 4 years that I've lived here, I've never met another American here in Didim Altrincham. So I think the first question must be, what brings you here? You live here in Didim Altrincham. Why? Why Didim Altrincham?
Okay, we moved here about 9 months ago. My wife's originally from Turkey, from Circa, just down the road. So she has a lot of family around here, aunts, uncles, cousins that she's really close with. They're really great people, so it just seemed like the natural place to go. Plus, if you look at the background with the sea, it kind of sells itself.
Well, yeah, the question is, why Altrincham? But when you look at this view behind us, you almost ask the question, why not?
Why not?
why not? I'm curious, was it always the plan to move here? Was it always going to be Didim Altrincham, or was it something that you decided on quite late? So you retired, right? You retired and moved here. Yeah,
we retired totally in the U.S., sold up everything. We don't have any kind of housing connection or anything back to the U.S. right now. But we'd kind of talked about it, off and on, maybe, for the last few years about, spending more time here. When we did retire, we bought a place here 7 years ago, spending, half the year here, half the year in the States. And, it's been 9 months that we've been here now. So it feels like home.
That's amazing. How long has it taken to just ease your way into it? I mean, you might not even be there yet. I don't know, but I know speaking to many people, they'll come here for the first 3 months and treat it like a holiday, and then they realise that's not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, for us when we first came here, we were. It's kind of funny. We were looking to get a new cupboard made for where our clothes washer is, and the guys who came in talked us into re-renovating our entire apartment. So the first 3 months that we were here, we were in renovation hell. So that really kind of opened my eyes up to how Didim actually can be. Plus, they had the worst winter that even the old people couldn't remember. This is older than I can ever, worse than I can ever remember it. And so we had a real, almost American-style winter while having the builders coming in and out. So the first 3 months felt like anything but a holiday.
I wonder, you wouldn't want to really have that, but I wonder how much value that has placed on you that you were here and experienced, which was the worst winter for 50 years. Yeah. And then, as you say, your home was upside down. I wonder if that's maybe a better way to kind of experience living here for the first time, rather than it seeming like a holiday and ideal. And I wonder if that brought you to closer to reality.
Yeah, it really did. But my wife and I, we've been married for 30 years. We've been coming here, off and on for 30 years. So I had a pretty decent idea what I was going to be getting into. I speak some Turkish. I like to consider it ever improving Turkish. And like I said, she's got a large family here who are great people. So it was kind of a soft landing and I mentioned this to her too a few times when we first moved here, and it felt real. When reality kind of struck in, it's like, I'm not really sure how people can come here without that family connection, because having their family here and being so close with them, it kind of made for a bit of a softer landing. But if you come here, especially if you're by yourself, and it could be pretty dramatic.
I can relate. I have various members of my family visiting and friends. I have a friend literally arriving at 5 p.m. today from the UK, another friend arriving on Monday. I've just had a a family wedding here of 40, but that's very different than actually having family that live here.
Yeah.
So I can certainly relate to coming here by myself, which was great actually. That kind of reset, period of resetting, just out of season, so October. So it was quiet. It was still sunny. There was still some water in the swimming pools to exercise. just. So yeah, I can certainly relate. I'm curious. Before moving out here, what were you visiting for extended periods of time, or was it purely a couple of weeks holidays, max?
It was 3 weeks. It was always always 3 weeks. Yeah.
What was it like after that 3 week mark of living here? Did it feel strange? Was it like this isn't a holiday anymore? At what point do you remember it feeling different?
When we got done with the renovations and everything was about 99% done, and then you don't have all that stress. You know, the builders people were there all the time. You were exhausted mentally, physically. And then one day we're sitting there watching Netflix and you realize this is life now. This is reality. And then you start to feel almost after a while, like sometimes it's like, yeah, we lived in the same home for like 14 years or something like that. And you think, he goes, well, we'll be back there. And you think, no, we won't. No, this is it. This is, our lives now. This is how we will be living. And that only happened maybe a few times because having lived in Germany, which we'll touch on later, I'm not your normal American. It's the first time out of the country, who doesn't speak any foreign languages, who doesn't recognize any food, is terrified of actually eating chicken outside of KFC. So,
yes. I'm wondering, so the renovations, was that predominantly turning your home from a holiday home to more of a living home?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we have a really nice place, but it was totally outdated. I think the building is like 17 years old, 15 years old, something like that, something teen, and everything looked like that. Things were starting to break down. You see the odd crack in the wall, little things like that. The toilets. I mean, just everything. Mm-hmm. The little cubicle showers that you can't even bend over. If you drop the soap, you have to have foot skills to pick the soap up. So, well, one of those deals. But we totally redid the house. My wife's cousin is an architect, and she really helped out. So we knew people on the inside and knew people on the inside of the building industry. So that really helped it make it a much more easier process. And the funny thing is she said, "Oh, this all went very well." I thought it was a catastrophe. And then her cousin was telling me, it's like, yeah, this actually this was very straightforward and went very well. I'm like, wow, that was straightforward and well.
and when we're talking renovations, are we talking new kitchen, new bathroom?
Everything.
Really?
Down to the light switches.
Wow. And so would you mind giving insight into, what was the kind of overall cost on that? And especially when you compare it to Europe and America?
In America, I wouldn't even want to guess what it would cost. Here was about $10,000 US dollars.
For here?
For here, yeah.
Right, okay. And would you be...
In America, you...
Times 4, 5,
yeah,
6?
I was
yeah,
thinking
going.
40. Yeah, take it times 4. About 40,000 maybe, yeah.
Okay.
It would have been done faster, but it would have hurt a lot more.
I do speak to a number of people who, when they make that move, they do turn their place around and make it more into a home. It's very different having a place here that you visit for a week or 2 weeks at a time, and it's a very temporary place where you're probably eating out at restaurants every day, coming in at 3 a.m. in the morning, getting up, maybe having breakfast before you hit the beach, and that's kind of that loop.
Kind of, yeah.
That loop. Whereas when you're here, you, like you said, you want to be sitting down and watching movies. It's more day-to-day real life. And that does have a difference. And I think it surprised a number of people who have been here who haven't considered that. They come and they're what was their 1 or 2 week holiday turns into 3 months, and then they realise, right, I need to be doing something different. I need a purpose. I need some structure.
Exactly.
Which takes us on to when it comes to having a purpose and a structure, what do you do with your general day-to-day? Are the things that, I know you do walking football with us, which we'll come to, but what do you do on a daily basis, weekly basis, to ensure that the cogs keep turning and there's a reason to go to bed and get up early?
A lot of small stuff. I was surprised that we don't really have a lot of downtime. There's nothing really one big, huge thing. I mean, I'm in the middle of, I'll out myself right now. I'm in the middle of writing a book. If you look at my phone, there's in the Samsung notes, there's probably 30 pages already written.
Right.
And they're about, moving here, because let's face it, a lot of Americans are doing this now. We can talk about it later. But so I do, I'm looking, and my wife asks me about it too. She's always asking me, have you written anything today? Or we were at the meeting, with the I was just like leading the meeting. I'm like writing down notes, like how the meeting was going, and how we're so far off the agenda and things like that. I mean, and so when she sees me like typing into my phone, she knows what I'm doing all the time, and she asks, tells me if I've really started writing it for real on my laptop, and so.
So what made you want to write a book? Have you done it before? Is this
I've always written. Even when I was a little kid, I was probably like the only 13-year-old goalkeeper who thought he was smart enough to write a book on goalkeeping. Well, if Peter Shilton could do it, why couldn't I? He'd only at the time played 50 times for England. I mean, come on.
I like that. Well, and the book, is about moving here, living here.
Moving here, living here. A lot of the problems that we faced before we moved here, because it's stressful. I mean, my she's originally from here, but she lived in America for 30 years. So it's a long time. And so she'd been, Turkey's changed a lot. When you come here for 3 weeks for a holiday, it's a lot different than living here. I mean, little things that really wouldn't bother you, like when you look at the line when you buy a car and the tax is like, incredible. In America, it's 6%. Here, I don't even want to do the math. It was bad. It was things. I thought everything would be cheap here. Some things have been shockingly expensive. Other things have been shockingly cheap. It's like it's a 1 or 100. There's not a whole lot of 50 going on in this country. Either they tax it like crazy, or they don't.
There are two extremes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Turkey's a very extreme country. Anybody who's watched football knows that.
Yes, it's certainly passionate.
Yeah, definitely.
It's certainly passionate. The fresh produce here is incredible, right? You go to the markets, and I think that was one thing with the pandemic that really stood out, that I think it was 80% of the produce here is from within Turkey. Yeah. So, when you've got a pandemic like that, the fresh produce was there. It was very affordable, and it's all by, local farmers. So, but then again, you look at the cars, and I think pretty much all the cars have to be imported.
I think so. Yeah.
And then I think from the tax system, it's still classed as a luxury item. Hence the high tax.
High tax.
To put it in perspective, I don't know if I've touched on this before on a podcast, that, you might get a Peugeot 106. So a small Peugeot 106 car that has 300,000 miles on the clock. And in England, that would probably cost you about £300.
Yeah.
15 years old, whatever it is. Here, you'd probably pay about £6,000.
Probably
about £5,000 or £6,000.
If you could find one.
If you could find one, and then you're probably going to be taking it to the garage very often because it's knackered. It's got that many miles on it, and so you're like, well, what do you do? And of course you can rent here, but then, I remember coming here first of all, and I think my budget was €300 a month. I didn't have a vehicle. €300 a month. Public transport is cheap. My gym membership, that meant I ate out twice a week. But then I started renting a car, and that then was €350 a month. So that more than doubled my budget. And it's more expensive now. So it's one thing to consider. And I know people that have come here and made a point of not buying a car and using public transport. And whenever it's really necessary, rent for a day or two. Yeah. If you're planning a trip, whatever. But then the bus system's so good into the cities.
That's true.
Do you have a car?
Yeah.
Oh, you do have a car?
We bought a car. We have to.
Okay, yeah. Okay. What kind of car have you got? Is it a big fuel guzzler? Being American, right?
It's a Dacia Sandero Stepway. It's
nice.
Like one down from a Duster. Got the last one on the lot from last year. Got at least the aunts and uncles say was a good price. Bought it new up in Izmir. Because anything down here in Didim is a lot more expensive than it would be in Izmir, and it's worked great.
Having a car? What the major benefits?
Yeah, just being able to come and go.
Right, is that, are you meaning out of town as well?
Out of town, yeah.
And is that so you got family in Soke?
Yeah. So, like I said, we go to Cirque all the time. We were up in Aydin yesterday. My wife's got an aunt and uncle that live in Aydin. Aunts and uncles, cousins that live up in Izmir. So just being able to hit the highways and not have to worry about the bus system or have to worry about a dolmush that's going to show up or it's not going to show up, and just things like that. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, true. And the traffic system here. I'm guessing do both you and your wife drive?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How are you with the traffic system?
About the first 3 months, it was kind of annoying. Now, if it's like if something crazy happens, I have like my own hall of shame for like crazy things that you see, like people like driving backwards the wrong way down a one-way street to get a parking spot, little things like that. Or you stop at a red light, it turns yellow, and the people start honking it behind you, even though there's a lady pushing a stroller like literally 2 feet in front of your car.
Or the pedestrians, they wait when it's on red, and you think, right, okay, and it turns to amber, and then they walk out.
Yeah, exactly. And then people are behind you honking. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Run these people? Things like that. Yeah, there's little things like that. After about the first 3 months, and she and I have talked about this too. After about the first 3 months, it really stopped annoying me, and I kind of stopped driving crazy. I tried to assimilate by driving as crazy as they did, and just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. You try to be a better person, try to follow the laws as well as you can, but if it hits like yellow, until you don't really want to stop because the guy behind you might hit you and things like that. So you do run the odd red light that in America I would never do. I mean, just parking here today. I mean, just pointing little things like this out. People were parked facing the wrong direction on a one-way street. In America, a cop would just go down the line and run out of ink in his pad. Everybody would get a ticket, and you would think, oh, my life was easy today. And everybody would get a ticket, and not once, not twice, but every single time. And here,
yesterday I was having soup at my favourite soup place, Kelapacha. I love Kelapacha soup. Kelapacha soup. And there was a cop car that came down, and he was making a lot of noise out of his car megaphone, and everybody's looking around, and you think I thought he must be looking for somebody. And then he came back up the same road a few minutes later, and everybody's coming out to the cars to move them, because I didn't realise, but it's on one side it's no parking. So he's come down, warned everybody, gone up, and I thought he's just going to start putting tickets here. And he just slowly went off, just in the trust that people would.
Yep. Turkish law enforcement.
Turkish law enforcement. So take us back, Tony. So where in the States are you from originally?
I'm originally from Findlay, Ohio.
Findlay, Ohio.
It's actually quite famous. It's the every year for about the last 5 or 6 years, it's been voted the best small metropolis in the United States. We have a massive oil company there, a massive tire company there, a massive plastics company there, a massive the dishwasher manufacturer. I mean, these things take up city blocks in a town with only like 45,000.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
The professional athletes have regularly come from there. It's its own little island, about an hour south of Toledo and an hour and a half north of Columbus.
Okay. Columbus Crew.
Yeah, Columbus Crew, exactly.
Been the MLS team, yeah. I know of Columbus Crew. What was Ohio like to live in?
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot from the time I was a kid. A lot of the money came to our town later. So by the time it hit, I was probably about 18. So the Findlay that you see, or if you would Google it now, it's not really the one that I grew up in. There wasn't a whole lot else to do besides sports and music and little things like that. There really wasn't a whole lot to do. All we did all day was play sport. It didn't matter what it was. And in America, it's not like in England where everybody plays football all year round, maybe a bit of cricket in the summer, or if you're big and brave, you play rugby. If you're crazy and Irish, you might play hurling. But no, we played whatever, usually with my non-soccer friends, because soccer became almost like its own niche, because from the time you were 10, I could tell you what the U18 was going to be, with maybe only one or two different changes. And once you got good, you went and played in Toledo. So from the time I was about 13, I was doing 2-hour round, like an hour there and an hour back to training, doing my homework in the back seat. Just lucky my father was a really good athlete who really supported me with all that. Half my family still think I should have been a baseball player.
Baseball.
Yeah, but
that's a slow game for young children, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny because I coached in California, working with the MLS a few years ago now, and with San Jose Earthquakes, and I remember talking to a bunch of parents, and they were saying that obviously baseball's too slow, American football's too physical, so football, soccer was the just the perfect balance, really. It was active. You know, the MLS had they've got the foot in the door. They were building the league, so you could see when you went to the games, there was a lot of new fans to soccer. But you saw that their children, they were going to be the next generation, and it was all going to kick on. And I think we've certainly seen that over the last 10, 12, 15 years, which has been phenomenal. When did football begin for you, and was that something that was quite different back then?
It was. And to touch on what you just said, I read the other day that the average MLS fan is about 30, and the average Major League Baseball fan is about 50 now.
There we go. Yes.
One more generation, and it's already like when you go to see Cincinnati or Columbus, you're already paying $75, $80 for a bad ticket. And
baseball or soccer?
Soccer. Columbus
Is
Crew.
that right?
Columbus Crew. Oh yeah.
And has Columbus Crew got their own ground now? Yeah.
So they built a new one now. They were the first one to build their own ground, held like 25,000. Now they've built a 22,000 state of the art downtown, right next to the big hockey rink. Super. The U.S. national team's already played there and everything.
Wow, because was it Atlanta? Who was it that goalkeeper for Aston Villa was at Middlesbrough? Guzan.
Yeah, Guzan. Yeah.
Where did he went to?
He went to Atlanta. Yeah.
Atlanta, and they held the record for the best average attendance for a season. I think they were like 7th in the world or something.
Yeah, I mean, and they always will be, because the guy who owns the Atlanta Falcons for football owns Atlanta United, Atlanta FC. I think it's Atlanta United.
Yeah.
He owns the stadium.
And wasn't that the guy that was looking to buy Wembley as well?
Yeah.
I think, right.
Same
okay.
guy. The thing is, he actually built the stadium with the soccer team in mind. So when you watch like an American football game, it's a little bit wider than it would be because he built it for both teams.
Right.
And on a little great aside here, because I'm kind of a socialist when it comes to things like this. The guy who owns the Minnesota Vikings wanted to do the same thing in Minnesota, and Minnesota had a grassroots team that was getting 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people to come and watch them in what's kind of the American Second Division. They managed to club up enough money to get MLS to give them the franchise, not the billionaire who just wanted to fill 20 more dates in his big stadium. The people who really loved football, a guy who probably would have come to the first game and then not have cared.
That's interesting.
So I thought that was, and they have their own 30,000 seat stadium. Everton just played there a few weeks ago. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
About 3 years ago.
3 years.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible.
I know a guy whose son plays for them. He told me the whole story behind it. It's fascinating. I mean, when you see all the billionaires are buying all these football clubs, it was just a group of like 50 people who clubbed together. They were wealthy, but they clubbed together enough to get MLS to give them the franchise because they were football people, not just a billionaire who loves NFL. And I thought that was amazing because America does not have that reputation.
Yeah, was it LA? Is it LAFC?
Yeah.
That was a group of celebrities, but fans, celebrity fans who came together. And I think, wasn't it Keira Knightley who is trying to pull together female stars to invest in a team?
Yeah.
That's really one thing that stood out for me when I was working in the States, and I felt we've lost that over the years. There's more of a sense of community with football. There are millionaires when they're teenagers. Yeah. They seem more distance each year from the normal fan, whereas America, certainly the early build of the MLS, there was a real sense of community. You saw the players a lot within community areas, schools, cities, and that really, really stood out. And I think the MLS identified that was a huge part of bringing support to the game. And it's certainly interesting how it operates over there. So when you were into football, that the MLS. Was the MLS been and
that
done?
Was on the horizon. I'm 53. So
yeah,
I'm still an NASL kid.
Well, because you had like the Cosmos with Pele and all of that, and then it was poorly run and it all imploded. So when you were playing, was it that middle ground where there wasn't a professional league?
There wasn't a professional league.
Right, interesting. So was it quite unique to be playing soccer back then?
Actually, the playing it for kids and stuff, there wasn't a professional league, but the soccer grew and grew and grew, for kids especially. When I first started out, I was lucky that soccer was established in my area because it depended where you were. You had little islands of places where soccer was established. The soccer in our town was established by a German guy who married an American. He was a teacher at the high school, started the high school team, and then got together a group of people, started a kids team, and it all kind of just grew from that. And I think it's kind of how it worked throughout the Midwest, at least in the East, because on the East Coast you had, the New York Italians or the Boston Irish or like that. You had all of these expats living there, so that was always easy. And that's where the first round of like really good American players came from. They all came from New Jersey, Massachusetts, California, and there was a big fight, East Coast, West Coast. It wasn't just for rap, because West Coast liked to play like a Mexican Hispanic style, and the East Coast wanted to play a Scottish English style.
Interesting.
And they would have the national team, you'd have half the team would be running like crazy and the other half would be playing slow 1-2s, and they would get into fights at training and stuff. So they had to, they hired a guy named Boromir Lutinovich before the 1990 World Cup to decide, what are we going to do? Because we can't have, 6 guys playing one way and 5 guys playing the other. So he managed to get everybody together. They took him out somewhere for, like 3 months or something to train him. So that's why the U.S. looked okay in 1990, because most of them didn't have professional clubs, because MLS came 2 years out, 94, because MLS came 2 years after that. And that's why the U.S. looked okay, because most of those guys were club free. After that, a lot of them got, like, I think a couple guys went to Brighton, a couple guys went to Mexico, a couple guys they just went to all like the...
Alexi Lalas, was he at Atalanta in Italy, I believe?
Padova. He was at Padova.
I'm sure, I thought it was at Atalanta.
I know him. He's from Detroit. Yeah,
he
was at Padova. Yeah. I played against him growing up.
Well, he was at San Jose. I think he was like technical director at San Jose I think either when I was there or just before. So he was doing the rounds. He was often a name to put into a club to get notoriety. And so playing football, decent standard. And then tell me about, because I know that you played over in Germany, so for Werder Bremen.
I was at Werder Bremen for a year, yeah.
How did that come about?
It's kind of funny. You'd like to say that, they saw me playing in a park or something like that, but it's not true. I, have family over there, and they knew someone on the board. And to be nice, I think they asked him if they could get a tryout. I was 18, so I tried out with the U19s. And I must have done pretty well, because one day I'm, it was like one day I'm like kicking with basically the assistant coach, and the next thing you know, you have Kali Kamp, Otto Rehagel, the guys from the first team are there, and then I'm into the reserves. Literally after one day with the youth team. So I got to, was training with them, and the problem is work permit. I'm too old to be bossman. So they had 2 players, and one of them's the leading scorer in the league, and he's from Switzerland, and the other one's captain of Norway and probably the best sweeper in the league. You're not going to get a whole lot of a look in. So, and I never got on the field in a Bundesliga game, but being in the reserves, their reserve team at the time was in the 3rd division, which was great. I mean, guys like Marco Boda was there. I mean, played in the World Cup final. Dieter Eilert's probably the best defensive center midfielder in the middle 90s in all of Europe. Scored a goal on me that I still can't figure out how it worked. Christoph Hannes, all these other guys who collected medals through their careers were in that team. Gunther Hermann ended up was on the team in 1990 when they won the World Cup. So I got to play at a really high standard with these guys, and then we got to train with the first team, that Karl-Heinz Ried and guys like that. I mean, World Cup winners. I mean, and guys played 50, 60, 70 times for Germany. So those are the guys I used to play five-a-side with in training. What was
that like? And I can imagine, would I be right in thinking that the whole setup in Germany, especially around those times, I mean, now you look at, since Arsene Wenger came in the 90s, the Premier League has, the whole culture turned around. You hear that was the case in Italy and Germany way before then. What was it? Was it super set up and very professional?
Very. Everybody stayed behind. When you would train, everybody stayed behind for lunch. There was a canteen you could eat at. They had a full medical staff. And I read a lot of books of especially the guys like Glenn Hoddle and guys like that, and they're saying Spurs had one part-time doctor. I just in the middle of reading Michael Owen. Michael Owen played the last 7 years of his career with one of his hamstrings torn in half because they didn't have the medical staff to actually So part of his right hamstring was under his butt, and the other half was down by his knee, and he ran on 2 of them for the last 6-7 years of his career because they didn't have the medical staff at, I mean, come on, it's only a Liverpool Football Club, for God's sake.
So, one of the biggest clubs and one of the brightest stars, and that was the case.
And that was the case back then. They had one part-time doctor who knew nothing about football. That was it, and that's Liverpool Football Club.
Wow. Yeah. What was some interesting, can you give us some interesting insights of being involved in a professional German club that was very unique and different that many people may not, that might surprise people?
First day of training, you go. There's a place called a Finnbahn, where they would have horses exercise in the main park. Usually, we'd train. There's most German stadiums are have, they call them Sportanlage. They have like 5 or 6 soccer fields around. They have a swimming pool, tennis courts. They have all sorts of stuff. And that's where we would always train on one of those fields. Well, for preseason training, the first time you would train, you would go into the park at the Finnbahn and you would run around this thing. It was like about a mile around. You'd run around that, and then you would do a bunch of exercises. Then you'd run around that again in 6 minutes. You do a bunch of exercises. After the second time you did a bunch of exercises, everybody started to get in a line. I'm kind of looking, it's like, why is everybody getting in line? Guys were like poking them in the ear to check their, the lactic acid in their muscles to make sure who was fit or who wasn't really fit and was just, getting through the session. And it was like, that was an eye-opener, that you had to come in a certain level of lactic acid in your muscles, otherwise you weren't considered fit. You came in at a certain weight. I mean, I had like a 4-kilo weight window. If I went under that, I had to pay money. If I went over that, I had to pay money. And you had to run it off after training with a lead vest on. It was 22 pounds. It had 11 1-kilo bricks that they would put in these pouches, and the coaches would even sit there and watch you. They would make the guys who pump the balls up and like shine the shoes and stuff. They would make you sit there and like time you as you would run like an extra like 2 miles with after a full preseason thing until you lost the weight. We came back. Came back from America and over Christmas time because they have a winter break and put on a bunch of weight, and I was like 1.5 kilos over, and I tell you, I lost that. I did that twice. I didn't hardly eat those 2 days, and I didn't drink anything. I almost dehydrated myself because that was one of the worst things I've ever done. He said, "You're lucky. Usually they make you carry an extra 10 kilo medicine ball. They must really like you or something." I'm like, really? I'm like trying to walk to the just walk out to the track because I'm about ready to die, and they said, "Oh, they must really like you."
Well, we're going to stick with football, but we'll bring it locally here in Didim Altingham. I think you contacted our football club, our Didim Walking Football Club, in May. I looked back at the message. You give us a shout in May to come along. And that was that the first time on a football pitch, a football field for a long while?
Yeah, I coached some in college, and I'd been done with that for probably 5 or 6 years. And to be honest, I thought playing football was kind of a thing in the past. I was just a fan now. I like to write about it, watch the games and things like that. And I'm not the world's biggest guy on social media either. I look at some things sometimes, but my wife actually found it. And I found these guys. She asked me, have you heard of a guy named Alan Kennedy? I'm like, Alan Kennedy lives in Didim? And it's like, because you see all these English people, hear all these Scouse accents. Why not Alan Kennedy?
Just to bring Alan Kennedy, former Liverpool defender. Did he score in the European Cup?
Twice. 2 times match winner in the European Cup
final. Yeah, and he left us a message on our social media wishing us well, and that piece got into it was included in a headline article in the local newspaper. So coming down to walking football, how was that?
My wife said, why don't you?
And your wife's to blame, so we've got
you could. So if any of the guys in the team are listening, it's my wife's. It's my wife's fault that I'm down there. But she's like, I didn't even, when you said at the venue, I didn't really know where it was. And you said it's across from Ali's Cafe, and I live within walking distance of that. And so I decided just to, walk over and, play and just see what's going on. It's like, walking football, hard can it be? Walking football is extremely difficult.
It does surprise a lot of people.
It surprises a lot of people. There's a lot of guys who play with us who played to a very high standard back in Britain.
Yep.
And they're surprised the standard that we play at. And every week it gets better. The guys are getting fitter. The combinations are quicker. And it's a different team every time. So you can't say it's like just a few guys who have, chemistry or something. No, it's like it's an entire club thing. And guys who hadn't played, in 20 years or so since they've been in school, or guys who still play like 5-a-sides in England. You have all those guys put together, and it makes for a really nice Monday morning out and some really good football.
I think I can't remember the last time we dropped below 20 players. We're 22 weeks in. We've nearly hit 100 players joining us since day one. And I think it must be 3 months, if more, that must be more than 3 months ago that we had less than 20 players join us. And the last few weeks has been 24, 26, 29, 28 players with spectators coming along. So, it's always, the nice thing is because people know that you can go along and watch. Some people come and see what it's like, especially those that, as you said, haven't played for 20, 30 years. That must be daunting just to play. And then secondly, when you're arriving in what you think is a well-established, I said think, is a well-established team. So that also could be quite daunting. And yeah, it's, as you said, it's really good to see the mix of people that come along, and it's great for not just physical but also mental well-being. And I touched on having a purpose, the importance of having a purpose and something to do, a reason to get up in the morning. That's all important. So, apart from it being physical and fast, has there been any things that surprised you about the walking football as a whole? They're coming together positively or negatively?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. The guys we have when we come together, it's a social thing when you get there, but when you play, guys are keyed up to win. There's guys who've had a lot of success, not just in football but in other parts of their life. And I think the guys that we play with are very success oriented guys who come out. They have the gumption to get up on a Monday morning and come down to the park to play football, no matter how many beers or whatever else they drank the night before.
Yes,
and they always show up. That shows a nice piece of discipline, actually, especially when you think I live in a beach town, but these guys it's taken very seriously, but it's good fun. There's good banter the whole time. Everybody kind of makes fun of everybody else, or they talk about like if the club got a bad result, or things like that. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or you're going in if you miss like an empty net or things like that. Or one guy will score like an amazing goal from like 20, 30 feet out, and then he misses a tap in.
The lovely thing I've witnessed over the past few weeks is somebody will score an amazing goal and everybody on the pitch celebrates. Oh, yeah. Everybody's like arms in the air and go, "Wow, that was amazing." We had a female player join us, and I think it was my shot. So I took a shot, was going top corner, fingertip save. This lady saved it, and the whole pitch was celebrating as if it was a goal that they themselves had scored. So I love that kind of, that not only that camaraderie before, during, and after the game, but the level of support that's there. It's just fantastic. I think it's such a positive experience, and we'd encourage anyone to come along and join us on a Monday morning. So there's a plug. What somebody who hasn't visited the area before, Tony, and I've picked up before a lot of people that come here for the first time, and then they've bought on their first visit here. So they've never been to Turkey, come to Didim Altinkum, and they find themselves looking at property and then buying on their first visit. So it has a strange kind of pull, a draw on the place, on people. And often when you ask people, what is it about this place? It's one of those things that often people can't really explain. Yeah. And with that being a difficult question, I'm going to put that on you. I know you've got family here, so it seems that it was more circumstantial to you, but
it's a little different for me.
A little bit different than you. But if you're thinking about what may draw people here, what are the things about the area that are a pull on people, not just visiting on holiday, but actually living here?
Okay, a lot of people think that people in Turkey like ride camels or whatever, or everybody goes to the mosque or things like that. And I don't know, if the farther you go east, the more, right wing maybe the country does get. But this is California. And people ask me in America what it's like to live in Turkey. I said, what's it like to live in Southern California? Because when I look out the window, it looks like Southern California. Mm-hmm. And they have the people here. They're very left wing. Have a lot of socialist ideas. The city's an up and coming town. People are taking it very seriously. They've just built a new amphitheater. They're rebuilding a lot of the streets. The schools have gotten better, more private schools, a lot of new buildings being designed and built. I mean, it's a real city on the rise right now, which kind of makes you feel good.
And you've said you've had your place for 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
So that seems like a real key period of time.
Yeah.
That have changed. Certainly pandemic hit, but there's been a lot, as you said, there's been a lot of money dropped here. A lot of money invested. Often when you look at it, you said the amphitheatre, that's 4,000-seater amphitheatre, new, and which is spectacular. But it's also the grounds around it that you look at that and you think that actually, historically with Turkey, they would have built that amphitheatre and then left around it. Whereas now there's a lot more thought and investment going in, which is amazing to see.
It's a great park. It has a park feel to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think there was like a million euros invested on the roads around here. You know, the decorative roads.
Yeah.
And you're looking, thinking that's a level that they don't need to be working at or spending at, but they have. So there's something. Again, I can't explain. I'm pleasantly surprised. I've been coming here for years. Pleasantly surprised that not only the level of investment, but the level of thought that's been applied in the area. And I do think that's a big pull. We've got a property boom now, the last 18-24 months. So property prices have dramatically risen.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then the level of investment has really increased. So, surely that must be a factor locally. Favourite 3 things to do in the area, Tony? What are your favourite 3 things to do? Is that a certain bar? Is that a restaurant? Is that an activity?
Favorite 3 things? That's hard.
I've seen you stomping around, walking. Are you a bit of a...
Yeah, but my wife and I, we walk. We do a lot of like power walking.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
She's just the
Is that Nordic walking, right?
Nordic walking, yeah. Yeah, probably, yeah. That's, walking, walking through down here on, the main street down here with all the bars and stuff here in Didim. That's one of our favorite things to do. Just going down to the beach, usually, the second, third key, or I'll take them off season.
Yes, yeah.
Is one of our.
It's a lovely beach when there's some of the beach to be able to access.
Exactly.
Right?
Looking out the window right now, it's hard to see a lot of sand.
It's not too bad though. I mean, for those that are viewing, you might be able to get a slight glimpse. But it's better than what it was in terms of numbers. It was packed. The season's coming to an end now. It's what we're coming up to mid-September, so this will air a little bit after. What's your go-to place for if you and your wife are celebrating an anniversary? Where's your place that you would go and eat and have a bottle of wine or a beer?
Up at the marina. I hate to be totally bougie, but the restaurant at the marina is brilliant.
Yeah. What a backdrop!
Yeah, exactly. That we just had our 30th anniversary and we celebrated up at the marina. They have an incredible seafood menu and champagne. Local wines, just really anything that you want. And I'm not saying it's free, but it is an excellent place to go. It's a great vibe, live music some nights of the week, so it's really fun.
Oh, we've spoken about the beauty of Altınkum and Didim and Turkey, which I was about to say, when you're up at the yacht club and the marina, you could be anywhere. Yeah. You could be in Italy, a Monaco, a glorious place in Spain. And yes, it can be pricey for here, but if you were somewhere like that, it would be 3-4 times the price, right? Very, very true. We have a festival coming up, so by the time this recording goes out, it will have been and gone. What's the name of the festival?
Everybody loves Didim. World loves Didim.
World loves Didim. So the concept it's celebrating all nationalities.
Yeah, there's like 65, I think. I forget the exact number, but it's 60-something different nationalities that live here in Didim.
Yep. So this isn't a plug as an advert, because we're kind of time traveling in a weird way that we're talking about it before it happens, and you guys will be listening and viewing this after it happens. So I would suggest do have a look into the event. What happened? Are they talking about making it a regular annual event? From what I understand, I think there's
they really want to. They're investing a lot of money in this, a lot of time. At the last meeting, they mentioned this is like one of the first of its kind, I think, in Turkey, if not the first.
Wow.
So they're really trying to kind of be a real. They're trying to put Didim on the map. They want Didim to be a Bodrum. They want Didim to be a Kuşadası. They want people to have heard about it. It's almost kind of like a well-kept secret, and unless you're Turkish and happen to be from here, or from the Midlands in England or something, I guess.
Yeah, true. And your involvement, you've got some involvement?
Yeah, we're going to be doing the American booth, which. Yeah.
So what does the American booth look like? Is it stars and stripes and hot dogs and lots of loud talking?
Yeah, we're putting together like a multimedia thing, like just something on the computer with some, the American music everybody knows, Elvis Presley, Bob Dylan, Madonna, even like Mamas and Papas, Beach Boys sort of stuff, all the way up to Linkin Park, So everything's going to be kind of on a loop, and America's a great place. I mean, I'm maybe not the world's greatest, most patriotic American, but America's a really nice place to visit. It really is. I mean, it's got great cities. It has incredible parks. I mean, great beaches, and tried to get some good pictures of those things to remind people that America's more than just Ford cars and Nike tennis shoes.
A little bit more on that. I do want to touch on healthcare because we've had many chats, discussions after the football on a Monday, which have been great. And one was healthcare. Now we've touched on Turkish healthcare on podcasts here, and America has its challenges.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this for another 45 minutes. But I just want to kind of compare what healthcare is like in Turkey compared to America, because there's insurance. I know you had a company, your own business in America, and you were paying over $1,000 a month per employee to have their healthcare.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
And it wasn't even the best program. For the best program, you had to go another $500 ahead.
And you were saying that you have Americans now that will require an operation or get an injury, and they will book a holiday with travel insurance, go to a country, and then say that they had that injury or the need to have a hospital there.
Yeah,
that
has happened enough. We went to Belarus to get a Belarusian visa. I think Belarus. To get a Belarusian visa, we had to have health insurance that would pay up to $2 million in Belarus because so many Americans were using it as a free healthcare depot.
Is that a healthcare depot?
Cuba. Wow. We went to Cuba. Don't arrest me when I come back to America, because Americans aren't supposed to go there. But we went to Cuba, and it was the same thing. We had to get Australian health insurance that would pay in Cuba, and it had to be, I think,
Australian health insurance.
Yeah, it had to be at least worth $1 million US. Had to be the max out policy because so many Americans have gone there. Because face it, getting sick in America is incredibly expensive.
And then if you get sick and you need to lean on your insurance, then you're ineligible to get insurance potentially again.
It could cost you more, yeah.
Land of the free, Tony.
Yeah.
Land of the free.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, healthcare in America, it's a huge issue that they have to really address. I mean, we don't have an NHS or anything like that either, unless you're really, really poor. And there's a lot of people who they live under a certain standard just so they can get the lowest level of healthcare for free. But I mean, it is a standard of living that you would not want to live at. And that's not right.
And Turkey, when we're looking at healthcare?
We've been lucky enough that I've never really been sick here, but a good example. I mean, I've had operations on both of my knees. Can't imagine why.
Diving around all those years.
Diving around all those years, yeah. And going to see a really good doctor just in our hometown. You'd go to see him. They would come. They would take an X-ray, which they could control. But then if they thought maybe if you needed an MRI, you would have to schedule one and come back, because they would have to ask your health insurance if they would pay for it. If the health insurance said no, you weren't getting it. Or you could give them $1,000 and they would do it for you. And it was cash money. They wanted it now. It wasn't they were going to bill you. They wanted cash money within 30 days to see you. And this is an actually decent guy. This isn't one of like the big conglomerate healthcare guys where it's even worse. And my wife had to see a doctor here, had a bit of a knee thing. We actually went, saw the doctor, saw a specialist in Circa, private hospital, had an X-ray done, thought he needed an MRI, had to wait a couple of hours, got the MRI done so we were there probably a total of 4 hours. We had seen a specialist surgeon twice, had a X-ray and an MRI done and read, and then she knew that she was okay. In America, with the health insurance that we have here to keep our visas, it was, I hope you feel better out the door. That was the bill. It was nothing. In America, our chunk of the bill would have been $3,000, $4,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it would have taken a week.
Land of the free, Tony.
Land of the free.
Land of the free.
Yeah.
We could go on healthcare. We've had some interesting conversations, and it's mental. You don't realise. You hear of the problems with insurance and the expense and pharmaceutical companies, but the whole, Americans going overseas to then take advantage of travel insurance when they're going away with an injury, it's just mental. That blew my mind when we discussed that before. But we can't end on a medical healthcare note. I know that it's not going to be long before you're heading back to the States for 2 months.
Yeah.
Is that right? And you're doing Peru?
Yep, we're going to Peru.
Did you mention Colombia yet? No.
Been to Colombia. Our son loves to go to.
That's right. Yeah, we've touched on that.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of a trip coming up. That's to say the least, right? And is this the first trip away since you moved here to live?
Yeah, and I've been having, the closer we get to the date of leaving, the more anxious I kind of get about it. I don't really know why, because we've been here. I mean, this has been home now for like 9 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're so used to living here, and am I looking forward to going back to America? Yeah, kind of. I'm really looking forward. We're really looking forward to seeing our son down in Texas. He lives in Austin, so we'll go down there. Austin's a great town. Anybody ever has a chance to go there, I would highly recommend going. Looking forward to seeing him. We're going to spend some time in Arizona. Amazing landscapes. I mean, you have the Grand Canyon there. They have a place called Antelope Canyon that we're going to go. Google it, trust me, and you're welcome. It's one of the most amazing places that you'll ever see. Monuments Valley. There's just so much to see and do there, and looking forward to doing all of that. Seeing the friends back. Going back to see my mother and sister and my family. Our family back there, and just kind of going to be bouncing around for a little under 2 months, and then we'll be back here.
And kind of to end the podcast, if you're looking forward to coming back, well, that's quite a nice way to say it. Yeah. So looking forward to coming back to Didim Altingham, what do you feel? What do you think that you'll look forward to experiencing when you come back? What is it you think you'll miss potentially?
I like our life here. I like the people. Right. I like the people that we see, we talk to on a daily basis. I was very close with my wife's family. We see them all the time, and one combination or the other. I mean, they're not just family; they're like friends as well. So I mean, I've got a large family, some of which I get along with, some of which I don't. But I get along with everybody in our family. We watch football together. They have big, Turks that love to have people over and cook, and her aunts can cook up a storm, and just things like that. I mean, we have a real community here, where in America, everything is so kind of hodgepodge here and there. Let's meet for dinner, then let's not talk for 3 weeks, and things like that.
It seems, I remember one thing that stood out in America, everything seems to have to be organized.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't seem very spontaneous with things.
It's never spontaneous.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There's nothing spontaneous in America hardly anymore. Everything has to be planned a few days in advance. It's just how it is. Maybe Americans are like that. I don't know. There's no. I don't know what the right words are that I'm looking for, but it feels, like I said, it feels more of a sense of community here. Whereas I have friends there that I'm looking forward to. Okay, he's a Man U fan, but I can forgive him for that. But I'm looking forward to watching football with him. I have cousins who live up in Cleveland, about 2 hours from us. I'm looking forward to going up and going brewery hopping, because there's like 30 craft breweries within like a 10-minute drive of his house or something.
I do love my craft beer.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm going to ask you this on camera, so there's maybe accountability, but if I can request a small bottle of craft beer to be brought back with you, that would be tremendous. I would thank you forever. That would be amazing.
I would in a heartbeat, but the problem is bring it into Turkey.
Oh yeah, of course.
They are so touchy about the alcohol stuff. Maybe there'll be something. Maybe I thought about something, because I've gotten to be friends with a guy named John Cross that we play football with.
Yeah, John.
John's a big beer fan, and we talk about craft beers all the time. And he was just talking about the beers that he had when he was in Hungary and Spain and stuff like that. So I was thinking,
has John already tapped you up? Has John asked the same question?
He's never really asked me but directly or anything. But I just like to bring something back for one of my new friends from watching football. And if I can manage to get something like a duty free, that could be a way around it.
That would be great.
And some of the big craft breweries in America now have gotten so big. There's a real chance that might happen. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I'd say there's no way. But now you have the really big ones like Goose Island especially. Goose Island,
Blue Moon. Will we see Blue Moon here?
Yeah, Blue Moon's here. I've seen Blue Moon here, but Goose Island would be the one I think you could really find now. That's really actually legitimately good.
Yes, we'll talk. It's a nice way to end the podcast talking about beer. We do have the World Cup coming up. Are you back in time?
Yeah.
So, what is the actual start date of? Is it this 20th of
and
November?
England don't play the States first. They play someone else. I forget who, because I actually checked this, so we could talk about.
It's
this.
probably good that we get a chance to warm up. You are a bit of a bogey team, the United States for England. Well, it would be lovely to think that we could do some live streaming and watching a game or two.
That'd be great.
Whilst recording and talking about soccer and football, and hopefully watching you guys lose for once against us. That would be. But the best of luck when we come to play you, and have a great time in America, Tony. And thanks so much for sitting down with us for the podcast. It's been lovely to chat with you. I look forward to it every week at the bar after the football, and we have some great conversations in the sunshine there. So long may that continue. But thanks for your time today. It's been great.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Cheers, Tony.